Okay, welcome once again to Finance Friday. We are talking this evening about investing. I'm Jerry Fetta, founder, owner, CEO of Wealth DynamX. And every Friday for 3 or 4 years now, we've been doing this course to teach the truth about money. Okay, because money is an area where the truth is not evident. Not only is it not evident, it's covered up by lies, right? So we have a lot of these things that we hear and we might think they sound financially wise. They're actually bad ideas and they're created by corporations, banks, Wall Street, insurance companies in order to get us to give them our money for as long as possible. So I like to bust those myths. As you guys might know, if you don't know, I used to be a financial advisor in the mainstream sense, meaning I would help people set up their mutual funds, their retirement plans, all of those types of things. And I thought I was doing a great job because when you're in that industry, you think you're sophisticated. You have all these licenses, all of this pedigree. You've got the clout of the firm that you're with. You have the experience of your associates. And so you kind of ride on the coattails of that, thinking that that is the way finances are done. Okay. And there was a turning point for me where I realized that that wasn't the way wealthy people did their finances, right? That might be the way finances are done, but the question becomes for whom? Because it's not for the 1%. It's not for the people that are actually building real wealth in America right now. They don't do mutual funds and stocks, and bonds in the retail sense, right? They do something very different. So I'm going to talk tonight about investing. And so I want to go over, before I jump into this, a couple of ground rules. So the first thing that I love to cover every single time we do courses is, number one, if there's anything I say that doesn't make sense, ask what it means. Ask questions. What does that mean? How does that work? And if something is tough for you to think with, I also want you to realize that usually with finances, it comes down to it's two things, right? Vocabulary or math, right? Vocabulary is simply just words. And I'm going to give you a hint here. All the words in the world are made up. Okay. And especially in finance, you have math, and then that math is symbolized by words. And we could use basic words. We could use, fifth grade English speak, and that would be easy for us to all understand. But again, you have Wall Street and banks. They don't want things to be simple. So they create nomenclature. They create very complex, sophisticated, fancy sounding words that are very specialized so that the average person doesn't know what they mean. Really underlying, it's just, what does the math mean? Right? So when you are watching tonight, I want you to think about two things. Number one, if I don't understand something, what are the words? Ask questions. And then number two, even more fundamental than one of the words, what is the math? Because if I can think with the math, I don't need to know the words, because I can think about the underlying thing that's happening and I could give it whatever name I want to give it. Right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I want to make sure that you have a purpose for being here. Right? Why are you here? What are you going to do with this information? What caused you to get on this course tonight? Right? And it wasn't just because you want to hang out on Friday, right? You can do that with anybody. I'm sure I'm cool and fun, right? Daniel says financial freedom. That's the reason, right? That's my reason. That's why I started diving into all this. So think about, what is your purpose? And then obviously there's two things that we're going to run into anytime we're in a learning environment. Number one, and this is especially true with investing and finance, is that the topic is unknowable. Like I said, it's too complex, it's too confusing, it can't be known. It's reserved for those other people, for those more sophisticated people. Guys, nothing is unknowable, right? Anything can be known. Anything can be learned. If it was unknowable, guys, I would still be in Houston, Alaska right now. At 18 years old, like, I wouldn't have been able to dive into this if all of this stuff was unknowable, right? I broke in, you can too. Second is, you don't know it all. I don't know it all. Nobody knows it all. Right? So we have to get rid of, again, the idea that I know it all. Sometimes I know it all is masked by disdain for repetition. Jerry said this before. I've seen this. I've heard this. I've read this. I've watched this. Great. Do it again. Right? I don't go to the gym once and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Right? I go every time. The more I do one exercise on one muscle the same way, and I add more reps and I add more weight, the better I become. Same thing with learning. So you're going to hear some things that you've heard before. And the reason is, again, I want you to know these things because I had to go through that repetition as well. Okay. So those are all the things I like to cover. And then finally, be a producer, not a consumer, right? It's easy to consume information and suck it all in and then never use it. That's how we end up being intellectually obese, right? It's like eating too many calories. We don't burn them off. We learn. If we don't start using and applying and thinking about, okay, how do I produce with this? Right? Then it's very hard for us to be successful with the information. So think about, how do I produce? How do I use this? We're not just here to consume. You do need to inflow, but you also need to be thinking about, how do I outflow? Right? So on to our topic. Now, this is one of my favorite topics because investing is like a very interesting topic, right, in and of itself. And it's also one of the keys to financial freedom. Okay. And so when we think about financial freedom, again, we've talked about this happens in greater and greater levels. It's not a one and done statement of, this point is financial freedom and everything else is not. This is more financial freedom. This is less financial freedom. We've got everything in between, and we just continue to go on in one direction or the other. Okay. I've been in a position in my life where I was going this way. I was losing financial freedom day by day. It was getting less and less real to me that I'd ever be financially free. And maybe you're there right now watching this. Okay. I've also been in a position like I am now where I'm moving this way, right? And I'm gaining more and more financial freedom every day. Okay. And this is what happens when we follow like the blueprints of financial freedom, where we start taking these steps. It doesn't happen all at once. It's little by little. And then all of a sudden, but every day, sure as hell, you're making progress, right? So investing is one of those things that if you're investing, if you're doing it right, you're not losing, right? You're most definitely going in the direction of gaining more financial freedom. Now, I remember when I first started learning about investing, it was totally foreign to me, right? The idea that I could buy, a stock or a bond in a company, or I could invest in real estate, or I could do anything really, was just out of my world, because I grew up in a family where that wasn't the thing that we did. We weren't investors, right? We were paycheck to paycheck. We were in debt. We were food stamps. We were free lunch at school. All of these different programs. We were subsidy programs from the government. Investing wasn't on our radar. So for me, I didn't know what it was. When someone started talking about it, I was like, I don't know what it means to invest, right? So I'm going to give you a really quick, short, simple definition. I've talked about this before. The root of the word invest literally means to clothe your capital. Capital meaning money, right? Okay, to clothe your capital. And I love this definition because it's so simple. You're literally putting clothing on your money. You're going to put shirt, pants, and hat, and it's going to clothe your money, right? So you're putting your money into something. No different than I would put my money into, or put my water into this cup, right? By the way, shout out to my PR firm, Command Your Brand. They do all my podcasts. So if you guys need podcast help, reach out to them. But to clothe your capital, right? So, and I've talked about this before, when I'm wearing clothing, what do I pick? I pick out things that I like, pick out things that I understand. Okay, I pick out things that fit me personally. I pick out things that fit my use or my goals. Right now, these are different. Fit me and fit my goals are different. Fit me means it fits my body, it fits my personality, it fits my style, right? So there's a certain way that I might dress, right? Fits my goals means I'm going to go snowboarding. So I better dress for that, not wearing the things I would wear to the beach, right? So it's got to fit me and my goals. It's got to fit my use. It's also got to be vital, and it cannot be overpriced. Right. This is how I pick my clothes, right? So I pick things I like, I understand, they fit me, they fit my goals. I'm gonna wear underwear before I wear a $300 Gucci belt, right? So vital clothing goes on my body first. And then finally, I'm not gonna buy overpriced stuff. I'm not the guy that buys the $300 Gucci belt in the first place, right? I'm not gonna do that because I don't think that's a good expenditure, a good investment, right? So this is how I would clothe myself. This is also how I would clothe my money. I'm not going to invest in things. I'm not going to clothe my money in things that I don't like. I'm not going to clothe my money in things that I don't understand. I'm not going to clothe my money in things that don't fit me as an investor. As an investor, I have my own type of personality and needs and places and context to where I'm at financially, that my investments need to suit that, right? I'm not going to invest in things that I can't use. Okay. I'm not going to invest in things that aren't vital. And this is an example. Vital means, food, clothing, shelter, transportation, health, education, like things that people need, right? I'm going to invest in those first. Okay. Before I invest in stuff that people don't need, right? Like an example of something that somebody doesn't need. Let's say designer couch cushions. Nice to have. At the end of the day, though, a recession happens, people aren't going to go out and buy designer couch cushions, right? So that's, picking something vital. And obviously I'm not going to overpay, which means that I need to understand the difference between price and value. Price is what I pay, value is what I get. right? So these are all of the factors that I need to understand. Is investing needs to clothe your capital. When I clothe my capital, these are the factors that I'm looking at. And I do not invest in anything if I cannot check off every single one of these boxes. Okay, in addition to that, I also look for this quadrant to be filled. I like to see track record. I like to see earnings. I like to see intrinsic value. Okay, intrinsic value means what something is worth in and of itself, right? So if something has intrinsic value, we all agree it's worth something regardless of what it costs, right? So that's intrinsic value. And then extrinsic value is the other thing that I would like to see in it. This means perceived value. What do other people think it's worth? Regardless of the price, what is the market? What do other people think it's worth? Is there, a way that if I needed to get rid of it, someone else would want it, right? That's kind of the extrinsic value, right? Intrinsic value means I'm going to use it, right? My house, my roof over my head, regardless of what you think it's worth, I live there. I'm going to use it, right? It's worth something to me, regardless of the price. Extrinsic means, okay, if I'm not going to live there, who is? And are they going to pay for it? And what do they think it's valued at? What are they willing to pay? I want all four of these checked off with an investment, right? So track record for me, 5+ years of consistent profitability. So whether this be a real estate deal, whether this be a company, whether this be a lending portfolio, whatever it might be, I need to see 5 or more years of profit or I'm not putting in a dime, right? So again, profit, not just revenue, not just sales. At the end of the day, what did they keep before they paid their taxes? And in the last 5 years, if there was a year where they didn't, I'm not investing in that thing, whatever it might be. Okay. And then along with track record of its lending, where I'm loaning someone money, I need to see that they have a consistent track record of obviously paying their loans back. They haven't defaulted, nothing like that. Right. And then earnings, obviously, the earnings aspect of it kind of ties into the profit. I don't invest in things that don't have earnings. So I don't do startup investing. I don't do angel investing. I don't buy Bitcoin. I don't buy things that don't have earnings as an investment. Okay. Now you might ask, well, what about gold? Jerry, you buy gold. Gold is a store of value. It's not an investment. Two different things. Store of value means I'm going to accumulate, save, and retain money there until I'm ready to invest. So I'm not looking at gold saying that's my ticket. I'm saying, no. That's where I'm going to dump the money until I'm ready to then invest. Okay. So with that being said, a store of value doesn't always have to have earnings. That's okay with me. Okay. Most of the time that's going to be the case anyways. Right. So these are all things I'm looking at. And then obviously we talked about the extrinsic value and the intrinsic value. So I started with this first, and we're going to dive into the meat and potatoes tonight. You might have thought this was the meat and potatoes of tonight, but I started with this first because guys, look at everything we should know before we invest. I haven't even talked about, are you in the right position to invest yet? I'm just saying at the point when you do, right? Knowing the definition of it, having all of these points checked off and really being able to check them off, not trying to force them because you're fitting in, right? Having all 4 of these boxes checked on this quadrant. Okay. The reason why people lose money when they invest is because they don't do this. They jump into something because of fear of missing out, right? Or because of laziness. Right? So fear of missing out, right? My friends are investing in it. They're getting into Bitcoin or NFTs or foreign currency trading or, these different meme stocks and Doge coins that are coming out. And it's really fun and it's cool and it's exciting. But at the end of the day, did you really stop and ask yourself these questions? Do I like this? Do I understand it? Does it fit me? Does it fit my goals and uses? Is it vital? And am I overpaying? Right? And are you really checking off all of these boxes? Does it have a track record, right? Is there earnings? Does it have intrinsic value and extrinsic value? I don't think most people are. And that's where the FOMO then turns into laziness. A lot of the time we then are faced with, okay, well, this is a lot of work. I thought investing was supposed to be passive, right? I didn't realize I was going to have to spend time, researching and reading financial statements and looking at things and understanding them. That's actually work. And I might do that 100 times before I find the right investment that checks off everything I'm looking for here. Okay. Investing is a game of, I'm not going to say patience. I'm going to say persistence, knowing that it is 1 out of 100 deals that you should be doing, not all of them. Right. And if most people are doing them, it means you shouldn't be. Okay, that's another thing I look at is we could even add, is it a fad, right? On Clothe Your Capital. I'm not a fad guy. I never get into the fads, right? Same thing with investing. I'm not investing in fads, just like I wouldn't buy clothing that's a fad. I would buy something because I like it, not because everyone thinks it's popular, right? I don't want to get involved in fads, right? And so when I look at this, like first, like the purpose of investing is to help us create financial freedom, specifically on this chart of, again, greater and lesser financial freedom. There's one point on here. I'm going to make this little star. You guys might not be able to see it very well. There's one point on here called financial independence, right? I'm going to scroll down and draw this out. Financial independence. Financial independence means that I no longer have the obligation of trading my time for dollars. That's what financial independence means. And so the point of investing is to get to that spot. Once I get to that spot, I'm exterior from having to go to, I call it the salt mines, to swing the hammer to get some money and beat up my body and trade my time and all this stuff that I'm never going to get back, just for a little green piece of paper that's backed by nothing, just so that I can pay my taxes and my debt, just so that I can save a little bit of money and give it to the banks in Wall Street who are already screwing me. So hopefully they give it back to me when I'm 60 so that I can then die before I run out of money. That's not a life. Okay, guys, that's modern day slavery. Like, you're not chained up with a slave master, literally, but figuratively we are in this financial system. So financial independence means we broke out of that system. We don't have to trade time for money anymore. And so the way that we get here is, again, passive income that exceeds my savings, expenses, and taxes, right? PI greater than set. We talk about this all the time. So when I invest with this in mind, what's the number one thing I should be investing for? Passive income. Okay. Till when? Till I have enough passive income that it exceeds my savings, expenses, and taxes, and I have achieved financial independence. So what does that mean? It means that investing, probably for the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 years, when I'm doing the investing, it's going to be very, very monotonous. It's going to be very methodical. It's going to be the same thing every time, right? I operate on something called the normal formula. When something's working, I don't change it. It's going to be the same thing. Don't change anything. Right now, again, this is something where with investing, there's this culture of like, diversify and spread your risks out and try new things and, get in on this one. And it's kind of like we have this little charcuterie board of investments. Guys, that's not how you do it, right? Andrew Carnegie says, put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. Okay. Warren Buffett says diversification is for those who do not know what they're doing. Mark Cuban says diversification is for idiots. Like, the wealthy people are telling you, don't spread your investments out. Find the thing that checks off all these, that checks off all of this, that helps you achieve this. And then you just keep doing that over and 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 over until you get to this point of PI greater than set. Okay. Now, if you did that, I don't think you would lose money, because I haven't been losing money when I do that. I do the same deal every time, guys. I buy life insurance or gold. I borrow against it. I take the money I've loaned from my life insurance or my gold. I put it into a private lending deal and I pay myself back over time. Meanwhile, I go earn the hell out of it, my earned income, save as much as I can so I can repeat the cycle. And it just snowballs and compounds as I build my passive income. Okay. I don't lose money that way because I'm not changing anything. Things only change when we change them. So if I was making money and all of a sudden I lost, I'm looking at, where's the change? What did I change that caused me to do that? If I was winning before, how come I'm not right now? Okay. So this is all with investing. Now, the other word that I want to go over with you guys is called speculating, right? There's invest and there's speculate. There's a very big difference between these two things. This word invest is widely misunderstood. And the reason why is, again, people want to sell us things. That's fine. But they give us this word invest. Who's ever been to like a car dealership or a furniture shop or wherever, where you're about to buy a high priced item and the salesperson keeps referring to it as an investment? They're like, oh, it's a $3,000 investment. And no, it's not an investment. That's an expense. And there's nothing wrong with expenses. And there's nothing wrong with spending money. but it's not an investment because it's not going to pay me. That couch that I bought over there was not an investment. That was an expense. My car was not an investment. It was an expense, right? An investment means, again, it covers all the factors we've gone over before. So this thing of, okay, invest, we need to know invest means one thing. Okay. It means to clothe my capital and it's going to achieve all of the aims and points we just talked about. Right. Then there's spend, right? That means I'm just getting rid of something. I'm trading dollars for a thing. And the thing is just a thing. It's just a consumer good. I'm going to wear it, eat it, drive it, sit in it, sleep on it, whatever. Right. And then we have this thing called speculate. Now, speculate is the one that gets folded in with investing when it's not investing. Okay. So speculate means that I'm going to buy an item, say the cup, for example, with the hope that that cup goes up in price, right? Which means, let's go back to this, the extrinsic value of the cup is going to increase. Because who can agree with this cup? If it goes up in price, it's not more valuable. It's the same cup. It's the same materials. It holds the same stuff. It does the same thing. It performs the same function, right? So the extrinsic value, what the market perceives the cup to be worth, has increased. Therefore, the price goes up. What I pay will go up. What I get does not go up. I get the same cup, price and value, right? So speculating means I'm going to buy the cup, hoping that will happen, hoping the price will go up. And so there's one hoping. I'm going to buy the cup, hoping the price will go up, then hoping that I will find someone that wants the cup. And also, again, hoping that they will pay me more than I paid for it. I'm hoping 3 times there, guys. Right? What do they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. It's called hopium. You get addicted to it. Okay. Hopium, where you hope your investments are going to go up, and you're gambling, right? I can't control if this cup's going to go up in price or not. I have no say in the matter unless I'm a market maker. And this is where we start getting into markets, guys. So we have markets like crypto markets, right? We have stock markets. We have bond markets. We have currency markets. These are all markets. And I'm going to kind of go over how this works. We have real estate markets. Okay. A market is where you have usually a buyer or a group of buyers and a seller or a group of sellers. And then you also have a supplier, right? A middleman, a deal maker, someone that's actually creating the thing that the people are going to be buying or selling, or they're managing it, right? So for example, with stocks, who's ever traded on like Robinhood or E-Trade? Okay. That would be like a market. You go on there and there's a market you can trade on in the stock market. And so you've got you, the buyer, buying on Robinhood from an anonymous seller. You don't know where the stock came from. And then you've got Robinhood in the middle. Okay. Robinhood acts as the middleman. When you sell, you're selling to them. They're holding it until a buyer finds it. And then they're basically getting it over to the buyer. And so they're kind of like a market maker. Okay. So here's the scary part. When we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with mutual funds and stock investing, there's such a thing called a market maker. A market maker will say, okay, I own cups, or I can get a great deal of cups, or I can control a massive volume or quantity of cups. So I'm going to get a bunch of buyers and sellers interested in my cups. And then I'm going to get the buyers to start buying them. And then I'm going to get the sellers to be interested in what the buyers have. And they're going to start trading them amongst each other. And because they have all of this activity and volume, I'm going to make a ton of money selling them cups. Right? Or facilitating the deal in the middle, right? Those are like market makers. Okay. An example of this would be, and I actually talked to a guy about this today, and basically we were talking about Elon Musk. Okay. And so Elon Musk, a guy that runs Tesla, right? Elon Musk did this with Bitcoin in 2020. So prior to 2020, if you look at anything Elon Musk, he says crypto is a scam. He says it's worse than fiat. And he says that it basically has no purpose except for illegal activities. You can watch YouTube videos of Elon Musk saying this, right? Now, in 2019, his company was actually about to go bankrupt. Most people don't know this. When they did the Tesla Model X, like they were about to go under if that deal didn't go well. Okay. So what does Elon do? Later in 2020, he changes his mind on Bitcoin. He says, hey, it's the way of the future. I'm interested in it. It's a good deal. I'm buying a bunch. So he bought a ton of Bitcoin. I think billions of dollars of Bitcoin. Okay. And so what happens is when somebody buys, we're going to call them cups or Bitcoins or stocks or whatever, when they buy that much of them, it causes the tide to rise. This is called market displacement. A bunch of money just got in the pool, just like a bunch of people get in the pool and the water rises. Okay. Doesn't mean there's more water. It just means there's more people in the pool and less surface area for the water to spread out through. So it has to go up, right? No different than if I poured a bunch of marbles in my cup, the water would spill over the top, right? So he goes in and does that, pumps the price of Bitcoin up, right? It says that you can buy Teslas with Bitcoin and all this other stuff. And then a couple months later, he goes on Saturday Night Live. Right before he goes on, he sells his Bitcoin. He made like $150 million on it. And he says, hey, Tesla is no longer accepting Bitcoin. It's an environmental hazard. Okay. Bitcoin crashes. Okay. Elon didn't get the crash. He pulled the cream off the top. Okay. This is why I don't speculate. Those are the kind of people you're playing with. Is he funny to watch on Twitter? Totally. Right? Is he an interesting guy? For sure. Is he a shark? You bet your ass he is. Will he rob you blind with a knife in the alley? Yep. Warren Buffett will too. Okay. Nano says that he got a bunch of fanboys on the way too. Though that's true as well. He did a video, I think 2 weeks ago about how government taxation was wrong and we should get rid of government authority. The majority, a big bulk of Tesla's revenue comes from government subsidies, right? So you got to, with these big billionaires, you got to look at what are they doing, not what are they saying. But the reason I point that out is if I were speculating, right, I'm not sure what's under the water. I'm buying the cup hoping it's going to go up in price. I don't have the control over it. I don't know there's people making that market, right? I don't know that there's all of the stuff that I have no cause over riding on what this cup's going to do. Okay. And so it really is gambling. It really is speculation. Now, the other problem, guys, is when this happens, let's say I do profit, the cup goes up and I sell it. I just got rid of the cup. I no longer have an asset. Okay. So if I do that, let's say I'm trying to be financially independent, and Elon, I hate to pick on Elon. He's a great example of this. He had to sell Tesla stock. Who heard him complain? He had to pay $11 billion in taxes. It's because he had to sell Tesla stock. The reason why he had to sell Tesla stock is Elon does not have enough income to buy the things he needs to maintain his lifestyle. So he has to sell off his assets in order to generate the income. It's called a capital gain. The problem with that is if you're selling off your assets, when do I run out of cups? Or when does the market stop wanting them? And what do I do at that point? Right? There's a real scenario. We're not all billionaires. Like, we're going to turn 60 one day. And if we're doing the retirement thing and our goal is let's accumulate this nest egg so we can sell it off over time, what happens when you sell it all off and you have more life than you have money? What then? Right? And so that's the risk we run. The other risk is when we do that, we're actually incurring taxes. It's called a capital gain. Right? We've heard this whole thing this year between, long-term capital gains taxes and short-term capital gains taxes. That means that if I buy this cup and I sell it within 12 months, I'm going to pay income tax on my gains. That's called a short-term capital gain. A long-term capital gain means if I buy this cup and I hold it for more than a year and sell it for a profit, I'm going to pay a tax on my profit, but it's typically going to be a lot less. It's going to be like 15 or 20% instead of 30 or 40%. Right? But either way, I'm paying taxes because I sold the thing. Right. So that's not a good game to be in. Again, what if I'm selling and the price is dropping as I sell and I'm selling into a loss? I don't want to do that either. Right. So when I'm investing, if I'm investing for income, none of those risks come into play. Okay. Like, so I do a lot of private lending where I have, like I said, my life insurance, my gold, I'll take a loan against it. And then I will loan that out as literally a mortgage on a piece of property, whether that's a single family home or an apartment complex or a mobile home park or whatever it might be. Okay. So I'm literally the mortgage. I'm the bank. They make their mortgage payments to me every month. I get paid on the 5th of the month. That's my deal. Right. So when I do that, it doesn't matter what the market did. Right, guys, in 2020, who remembers when everyone got laid off and there was that essential worker thing and certain people couldn't go to their jobs. Certain people were quarantined and they couldn't work. And so because of this, there was this big panic on apartment like rents, like when landlords couldn't collect rent. Right. And there was also a lot of forbearance on loans with mortgages where people that had mortgages couldn't make their mortgage payments. So the banks were having to do forbearances and forgivenesses and basically saying, hey, you missed 4 months worth of payments. Let's tack that onto the back of the mortgage. Right. Essentially, people stopped paying their bills. Mine didn't. None of my clients did. Right. Didn't affect the private lenders. Daniel asked, what's forbearance? So forbearance means that, let's say I have a mortgage and I stop making payments. I've defaulted. I've broken my promise with the lender. Let's say that I did that for 4 months, right? And the lender says, hey, we're going to take that 4 months that you missed and we're going to reinsert that either into the loan, and you're going to have a bigger loan and a bigger payment, or we're going to put it on the back of the loan and you're going to make longer payments. So that's kind of what forbearance would look like. And that's what happened is a lot of banks had to basically say, hey, you missed four payments or 6 payments. We're going to stick those on the back end of your mortgage now. Right. But with private lending and the deals that I did, they all paid. Okay. And the reason why is it's a private agreement, right? They live in this house. If they want to keep living in this house, by golly, they better figure out how to pay their mortgage next month. Because if not, the document I says I can take the house away. And they agreed to that. Right. So this is again where I'm not getting involved in these big markets. This is the way you lose money, is getting involved in these big markets. So we're getting into these crypto and stocks and bonds and all this stuff, right? Nothing wrong with markets, but what I'm telling you is if you're a brand new investor, you're a little fish, do not go out to the Pacific Ocean, right? Find a puddle in your backyard, hang out there for a while. Okay, because there's plenty for you to do. You can grow, you can do everything, and you jump to the next one, and you can go to bigger and bigger and bigger as you grow, right? But if you're this tiny little minnow and you go out into the ocean and there's freaking, eels and whales and sharks and pirates and fishermen and all this stuff that literally is hunting you. Okay, because that's what they don't tell you is when you get into these markets as a retail investor, you're the product. Okay, like you're the one buying the stock, sure, but that's no different than Facebook. They need you on the platform so that they can sell ad space, right? They need you in the market causing displacement so that these big sharks can come in and take the money. In a market, there is what's called a zero-sum game, meaning the only way someone gains money is because someone else lost it. Okay, anytime you gain money in a market, it was because someone else lost it. Okay, Daniel asked, what's displacement? Displacement is that example of the people in the pool, right? So we have the pool has water, more and more people get into the water, and it causes the water to rise, right? There's not actually more water in the pool, it's just displaced it. It's basically more mass has occupied the space or the volume of that pool, and so it forces the levels of the water to go up, and appears like there's more water in there, but when everyone gets out, it goes back down to its normal level. So that's kind of displacement. Now, in a market setting, the pool is the stocks or whatever it is that you're buying into, right? So you're the product. You buy it, whether it's crypto, stocks, bonds, currency, real estate, and the banks, the market makers, the traders, the hedge funds, the issuers, they all cause the prices to rise as you enter. They invest with you. When you're at the top and they know that they can secure their profit, they pull out. And what happens when they pull out? It crashes. Okay. And you're left holding the bag. And then what do they tell you then? They say, oh, it's just on sale, right? Never sell at a loss. It's just on sale. Buy more, right? Buy more. It's going to go back up. We promise. Well, duh, it's going to go back up because when you start buying more, they're going to jump back in with you and they're going to cause market displacement again. And then they're going to sell at the top again and it's going to crash. And then you're going to lose your money again. Okay. So this is what we're looking at. This is the game that's being played here. Okay. So how do we avoid this? Okay. How do we avoid this? Number one, it goes back to, we never invest in something that we don't understand, right? So we have to have understanding on whatever it is we're getting into. What level of understanding? I teach this. If you can't draw it on a napkin and explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't understand it. Okay. If the person telling you about the investment can't draw it on a napkin and explain it to you like you're a 5-year-old, they don't understand it. This is contrary because culture says that I should have this college degree on my wall and this certified financial planner designation, and I should have a bunch of letters behind my name. And when I speak, you should feel like I'm a god and you don't understand a thing I'm saying. And that's how you know I'm talking about something that's important. No, I should be able to level with you and talk to you like you're 5. And if I can't do that, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, right? So understanding again. And then the second thing is we have to have documentation. Okay, if it cannot be documented, it's not true. And investing is all about statistics, right? So I'm putting in a certain amount of money. That's a statistic. I'm going to leave it in there for a certain amount of time. That's a statistic. There's a certain rate of return or rate of growth that's going to happen on the investment. That's a statistic. Okay, if I can't see that and if I can't document it, and it goes back to track record. So that would be a form of documentation, like prove it to me, prove that this has happened before. Okay. It also goes back to security. Okay. This would be like, you know, in an investment contract, like what happens if I lose money? What happens if you default? What happens if the market crashes? Right. So this is going to be typically there's an agreement that says, here's what happens. Right. For example, in stocks or mutual funds, when you invest, they say, hey, you could lose all your money. We need you to initial and sign on this page saying we're not liable. They have security. You don't. Right. On a lending deal, like Jimmy pointed out, right, they don't pay the mortgage. Well, the piece of paper says you don't pay the mortgage. I, the investor, get to foreclose on the property. Okay. So again, that's security. Dan asked, what's a mutual fund? So a mutual fund, we covered this last week. A mutual fund is where you basically take a bunch of stock, right? So it could be stocks or bonds. You could take dozens or hundreds of fractional shares of stock. We're going to use stock as an example. And you put it into a basket. You put it into a basket of investing. You basically say, we've got, you know, Apple and Disney and Coca-Cola and Home Depot, and it's all inside of this, and it's professionally managed by a manager, and the manager charges fees to manage the account. And then we're going to get a bunch of investors in here. We might get thousands of investors in this mutual fund, right? So it's kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like a socialist way of investing in stocks. We're all going to pool money together. We're going to buy a bunch of stock in this big vehicle, and then we're all going to have it managed by the guy that's managing it. I relate it to getting on an airplane, right? You got the captain. He's kind of like the professional manager. The mutual fund is like the plane. And then you've got all the seats, which are like the mutual fund shares. And then you've got all the passengers, which are like the investors. Hopefully it doesn't go down, right? Now, planes have a lot less fraud than Wall Street. You don't see documentaries about 2008 for airplanes where they're like, remember when the entire airline industry killed all their passengers for fun. You don't see that kind of stuff. With Wall Street, you see that all the time, right? So that's what that looks like. So back to this is you want to have understanding, you want to have documentation right now, especially when you are investing in something new. Let me erase some of my scribble here. When you're investing in something new, these are important. Okay. The other rule that I have is I need to have some sort of like physical relationship with the investment. So if it's real estate, like I want to see proof that it's there, right? Maybe that means I visit the property. Maybe that means I can find it on Zillow or Google, or I can find the title or whatever it might be, right? Like I can actually see physical proof that it's there. Okay, I like that. I like having tangible assets. This is another way, by the way, to avoid losing. If I trade US dollars, which are not money, they're currency. If I trade US dollars for a tangible asset, like a piece of real estate or an ounce of gold or whatever it might be, right? If I lose and that goes down, I don't really care because I still have the real estate. I still have the ounce of gold. It goes back to the intrinsic value thing, right? So with a stock, that's not the case, because if the price goes down, what do I actually own? Nothing, right? With crypto, same thing. If the price goes down, what do I actually own? A nifty Venmo account, right? Like at the end of the day, right? With a foreign currency, if the price drops and I lose my money, what do I actually own? A bunch of worthless currency, right? So I want to invest in tangible assets because regardless of price, they have value. This is my downside protection. Right? Like if you took all your investments, right, and you pretended like the dollars of the world just went away and they didn't exist anymore, is there demand for the things you own? If you own real estate, yes, there is. There's demand for that. There has been for thousands of years. If you own gold, yes, there is. There's been demand for that for 6,000 years. If you own food, yes, there's demand for that. If you own water, yes, there's demand for that. This goes back to my point all the way up here. How vital is it? How vital is the thing? Daniel says land. That's another one. Yeah, land has been valuable longer than gold has because we got the gold from the land, right? So all of these things you can look at and say, okay, if there was no price, if we got rid of the price entirely, this is how you test if something is a good tangible asset. If we got rid of the price entirely, A, would I still want to own it? B, would anyone else want it? Would there be demand for the item? And if there's not, I'm not putting money into it. Okay, because downsides do happen, recessions do happen, depressions do happen. Okay. Now, the other thing we've got to look at here is sometimes we can't always have this tangible asset. Like, for example, I do a lot of foreign currency trading with a hedge fund that I work with, right? That's not like it's digits on a screen. I can't go hold the currency, right? There's not real estate that I'm secure, but I put money into the fund and I'm trusting my trader that he's going to do a good job at this. Okay. So for me, the tangible asset is him. I know the guy since 12 years old. He's been my best friend. I've known his dad since then as well. I know where he lives. If he loses my money, I can show up at his house. Right. So I look at that as well. So when I'm looking at, again, these are markets, currency markets would be something in this group here. If I was doing like stocks, let's say, for example, back to the mutual fund thing, I can't go knock on Wall Street's door and be like, hey, you lost my money. What are we going to do about it? Right? Like I can't even go there. If I could, like, good luck finding it. If I could find it, good luck getting past the front desk. Right? Versus with my currency guy, if he lost my money and he's had bad months before, if he lost my money, I get a phone call. I can go sit down with them. I can go find out what happened and we can put together a game plan for him to make it back. Right? Or some alternative. Right? So these are all things that I've got to look at. And again, like we're 40 minutes into this and we haven't even said, okay, good, do your first deal now. Guys, this is all the work that goes in before you ever invest, right? Before you do it. A lot of us think investing is the shortcut. No. Investing, again, like if you lose, it's not investing even. Think about this. Investing means to clothe your capital. It means that I'm going to put clothing on my money. We talked about this at the very beginning. If I lose, it means that I actually stripped my money down and it's naked. I did the opposite of clothing my capital. Right? It's the equivalent of saying like, I'm gonna eat food, but instead of eating food, you start vomiting. You're doing the opposite of what you should be doing. If you're losing money, the purpose of investing is, again, gaining money, making profits. If I'm losing, I'm doing the opposite of the purpose. That is not an ideal scene, which means it's full of outpoints and things that are wrong. And so when I'm looking at this, I've got to be seeing these things before I go in, because if I lost money, guess what? All those wrong things and outpoints and not ideal scenes, they existed beforehand. I just didn't see them. And I didn't see them out of what? Neglect. Like I was too busy to look. If I was too busy to look, why am I investing? See, this is the mistake, because a lot of people, again, they think investing is this passive thing and you just find an asset manager or a professional and you outsource it all to them. And then they do it all for me so that I don't have to, because I'm so busy being, a parent or a business owner or an employee or an executive or whatever, right? Well, that's how you get stolen from. That's how you get ripped off. That's how you get into things you don't understand. That's how you lose money, is you trust someone else. Not saying don't trust people, but I'm saying do all this first. Then you find the guy that you trust to make sure he does all the things. It's like in a business, I don't not trust my employees, but guess what? I have all their job descriptions written up before I ever hired them. And I did all of it myself first before I ever told them to do it. So by the time they're doing it, I've already done the job. So I know what it's like. If they say, hey, it's not working, I actually be like, yeah, it is. You're just doing it wrong. Let's work on this, this, and this. I've got a job description and a hat written up. So that way we can go back and say, what does the policy say on this area? Right? Let's train on this area. Okay. And then because I've done that, I can actually manage them by statistic. This is the other part. The stats. When you're investing, it's not about relationships. The relationship aspect of it is between you and the rate of return that you're getting. And the fact that they've got a track record and they're not losing your money. Okay. In the world of finance, too many times it's based on relationships. Oh, this person goes to my church, or our kids go to school together, or I've known them for so long, or whatever. And that's all great. But at the end of the day, are they doing the thing they should be doing? And is your money doing the thing you expect it to? And do the stats prove that? Right? So Jimmy says, I have a buddy that ... You don't want to have a buddy that ... You want to have a professional that can actually make the stats happen. That at the end of the day, they know that they're not your buddy, they're working for you. And if they work and do a good job, then yeah, you can be buddies all day long because they help you make a lot of money. That's my basis with all my clients is, guys, I'm not your buddy till you decide I am. Till I do a good job for you, I don't expect you to trust me. I don't expect you to think we're buddies. I don't expect you to want me to want to invite me over. Like until you're like, damn, Jerry did a great job. His team did a great job. My assets are growing. My passive income is growing. All of my stats are going up. Jerry's a good guy. He's my friend. I like his team. That's how it works. It's not, I like his team, yada, yada, yada. Now let's hopefully see if they do a good job. You see the difference there. So again, like if I'm doing all this and I'm not measuring the stats, it's either I'm doing it out of neglect, I'm too busy, which if I'm too busy, it's a sign that I shouldn't be investing. I need to get more organized with my finances in the way that I conduct my life first. Okay. Or I'm afraid. I'm doing it from fear. FOMO, fear of missing out, or fear that, the market's going to crash, or this or that, or whatever it is. Never invest based on fear. Fear would cause me to either not look at the stats or look at the wrong stats. Okay. A lot of times fear is used as a red herring. A red herring isn't a magic trick where the magician gets you to look over here. So you're not paying attention to what he does over here while he does the trick over here. Right. The other one is greed. Okay, greed. Like I don't care about the stats. I just want to jump in and have it go to the moon, or I want to have a 10x return, or whatever it might be. And you neglect all of the red signs, the red flags, the red herrings, the warnings, all the things we talked about tonight because of greed. Right. So these are all things that the average investor might get caught up in simply because, they don't know. They don't know better. They haven't been educated on it. They haven't spent the time. And these are all things that we teach. And this is why, guys, we're doing this course tonight. I've talked about investing so many times, but it's again, like, if I know this, I should be doing it. Right. And if I'm not doing it, I lack the knowledge on it in some area. Right. And even worse, if I'm doing it, but I'm getting a wrong result, I'm investing, but I'm losing money. It means that I need to go back. Doesn't mean that I need to go forward. This is the part that a lot of us get wrong. Is we make a mistake, we lose money. We're like, okay, let me try it again. No. Go backwards. Go back to the steps before you ever put the money in. Look somewhere in there and you're going to see where you messed up. And it's going to be one of the things we talked about tonight. Okay. Now, the other part, this is the final part that I'm going to talk about before we open this up for questions. There's a right time to invest, right? If I have consumer debt, getting rid of that debt is where I should be investing. Okay. If I don't have financial literacy, where I don't know about money and I'm not thinking yet like a top 1%er with my finances, that's where I should be investing. If I don't have reserves where if I miss a paycheck or two, I could go broke or end up in massive debt, then that's where I should be investing, is building up those reserves, right? If I am not properly protected, where my liabilities and risks in my financial life are covered fully 100%, then that's where I should be investing. Right. Because if I jump into a real estate deal that, let's say I put in $50,000 and it pays me a 12% return, which is great for a real estate deal, guys, that's $500 a month. If I've got $50,000 in debt, I guarantee you that payment is more than $500 a month. Okay. Dan asks, what's consumer debt? Consumer debt would be debt that we use for consumption, credit cards, car loans, student loans, furniture loans, you name it. So if it's something you're going to consume or use rather than like a business loan or an investment loan, that would be consumer debt. I love Dan's questions, by the way, guys. If you have questions, make sure you're dropping them in the chat, because this my 10th grade math teacher said, hey, I'd rather have you feel dumb for 5 seconds than be dumb for the rest of your life because you didn't ask. So you like put your neck out there, feel dumb, ask the question. I'm not going to laugh at you. Let's get it answered and let's move forward with the knowledge. So basically what I was talking about here, guys, is if I'm putting $50,000 into a real estate deal, making 12%, that's going to pay me $500 a month. Let's say I've got 50 grand in credit cards. That's probably costing me $2 to $3 grand a month. Where's my 50 grand giving me the most income back? The credit cards, not the real estate deal. Right. Same thing. If I have, $500 a month coming in, but I lose my job or COVID happens or whatever happens, and I don't have, the $6,000 a month worth of income that I'm used to, but I still have the $6,000 a month worth of expenses, I can't get that 50 grand out of that real estate deal. That's not liquid. I need that in reserves. Right. All these things are important. Same thing. If I'm not properly protected, let's say I did, for example, health insurance, great one, right? Health incident happens. I have $500 a month in passive income, but I don't have health insurance. And I've got, some kind of a treatment coming up that's going to cost me 20 grand. That $500 a month does not help me. Not saying objectively and flat out it's unhelpful. I'm saying at that time, in that place, in that circumstance, it does not help me. And so this investing thing, we tell people on our blueprint to financial freedom, it happens on phase 3. Phase 0 is all about financial literacy. Okay, getting financially literate, getting out of debt, cleaning up the past. Phase 1 is about solvency. Okay, getting 6 months worth of reserves built up and savings, getting properly protected. Phase 2 is about getting out of the financial traps, getting out of Wall Street, banks, the IRS, all these things, right? And so I need to get through this, okay? And then finally, then I invest. Because if I'm investing, it's like I'm taking a cup of water and I'm bailing out the boat, right? But the hole has a giant chasm in it and it's just filling up. And there's nothing that I can do with that little cup that's going to make the ship stop sinking, right? I've got to patch the hole or get out of the water, and it's not going to help until I do that, right? So what I want to do here is I want to open this up for questions. So if you're on Zoom, drop your questions in the chat. If you are on Facebook, drop them in the comments. Let's keep these germane to investing, and we will jump into them. Again, if you're on Zoom, we'll go live. We can mic up. You can hear me. I can hear you. We can talk. I love doing that, by the way. It's my way of connecting with you guys. I used to be able to call and text everyone myself, believe it or not. I did that for years. As we've grown and gotten more clients, I can't do that anymore. So this is the opportunity where I get to talk to people, have conversations. So it's really one of my favorite times. So even if you don't have a great question, still pop it on there. I'd love to talk to you. Good. Let's check out Facebook first. All right. Good to see everybody. Sean, good to see you. Justin, David, good to see you. Andrew, good to see you. Chris, good to see you. So Justin says, I borrowed from my sacred account and invested into a private lending deal through Wealth DynamX, which pays me every single month. I'm loving it and getting ready to do it again. That's awesome. And Justin I hope Justin's mind me sharing this. He's got the experience of doing a deal, and this was in 2020. He had a deal that in 2020 stopped paying him because 2020 happened, and our deal kept paying him. So he's actually seen on both sides. This deal over here didn't pay. This deal over here did pay. Okay, I prefer the one that does pay. So good stuff, Justin. Jeremy says, ditto to what Justin said. Love my private lending deal with Wealth DynamX. That's awesome. We're going to be getting more of these out, by the way, more private lending deals available for phase 3. Andrew has a question for private lending deals. What is the foreclosure process like? Have you ever had to foreclose on a lending deal? Good question. So Andrew is asking if Andrew's an investor and he loans me money, and I'm let's say I'm the guy that's living in the house. I'm making mortgage payments now to Andrew. If I don't pay Andrew, I'm in default on my loan. Okay, I'm in default on my loan, and so because of that, Andrew gets to foreclose. He can take away the property. So he's asking, what does that process look like? So with foreclosure, if you do it one of two ways, if you do it on basically a segregated, allocated loan where that house is your house and you have just that property, then you basically have, the recourse to go to the courts and say, hey, this guy defaulted. We've got the documents to prove it. I've got the lien on the title. Let's go get the title transferred over to my name. And it's that easy, right? In some cases, it's easier than evicting somebody. Now, the other aspect of it is if you're in a fund. A fund would be not allocated. It's basically unallocated. Everyone's in the pool together. We're all loaning out to the fund. The fund is buying multiple assets. So in that case, if a foreclosure or if a default happens where I'm the guy living in the house, but I'm making my payments first to the fund, and then the fund is then making the payments to you, right? You as the investor have a little bit of protection because if I, the guy living in the house, don't pay the fund, you don't care as long as the fund pays you, right? So as long as you get paid by the fund probably has reserves and different things to supplement the cash flow, but the fund doesn't want to be in default. So they might deal with this non-performing debt or loan for a period of time and still pay you, the investor, because they can, while they deal with me, the guy not paying my mortgage, right? Now, if the fund ever defaulted, basically the investors would sue the fund, foreclose. Again, the fund agreement should have foreclosure provisions, default provisions. And then at that point, you have the ability, whether you're a fund or an allocated, segregated type of deal where it's one-to-one on the house, you now take foreclosure and ownership of the property. So you're either going to, rent it out, you're going to sell it, or you're going to owner finance it or lease it out to somebody else. And you're just managing it directly at that point. So that's kind of what that looks like. I've never had to go through that. The reason being is I've never invested in a fund that has ever done that. Meaning if someone's done that, I don't put my money with them. Right. So like, for example, some of you guys invest in one of our funds that we work with in Alaska, 40-year track record, never defaulted, never missed a payment. Right. So I know for a fact, like this guy pays. And so I'm going to put my money with him because he pays. And I don't want to deal with that because then it becomes not passive. Right. So Not saying it never could happen, but you want to pick your battles. You want to pick your partners. And that's why I pick the ones I pick, because I know they're going to pay. They've got a history and a track record of doing so. Good questions. David says mutual funds equals the buffet of crappy investments. That's right. We call that soup of the day, man. Soup of the day or casserole of the day, where you get all the leftovers that nobody else wanted. You dump it in a pot with in a pot of hot water and you boil it up, and then you feed it to a bunch of uneducated masses that think they're investing. That is a mutual fund. All right, good questions here. Let me jump into our questions on Zoom. All right, we've got a couple of questions we've answered here. Nano has a comment. So Nano says, that's how I've been able to make it this far, Jerry, making it simple to the point, not only that I can understand, but also teaching it to newer clients. Exactly. Lots of awesome comments here. Okay, so somebody here has a comment saying the interest you pay is greater than the interest you earn. I think that's pertaining to the debt. So with debt, again, like there's this idea of, do I pay off debt because I could earn more than the interest costs on the debt? So let's say that I have got, the $50,000, for example. Let's say that I could make 12%, but the debt interest rate's only 5%. Do I invest instead? I think the interest rate's a red herring. Right? You don't pay your bills in interest. You pay your bills in dollars. So which one is going to give you more dollars? The debt's going to give you more dollars, right? So I would go for the one that gives me more dollars, because I get that payment back, and then I can use that still to invest in the future. All right, Dan's got a question. Let me actually bring Daniel on live, because I haven't talked to Daniel here in a couple of months. I'm gonna mic you up, Daniel. Hey, Dan, how are you?
I am so inspired, Jerry. This is incredible.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. You had a question. Is it on reserves?
Yeah, I was really fascinated that you were talking about putting reserves aside as a form of investment, right? Because, say for example, 2020 happens again and you're not making income. So the money that you put aside as reserves is a form of investment, you were saying? Is that what I understood?
Yeah. So you're investing in your solvency at that point. You'll put that somewhere. That's where we like the life insurance, because it grows better than a bank will, and it gives you some other bells and whistles. But yeah, you're investing in being solvent, so that if 2020 does happen, you're fine. Nothing's going to affect you.
That's really cool. I love it. Do you have any other sort of like pandemic proof approaches, or would you say that the life insurance, besides gold and the life insurance?
So the gold did well, life insurance did well, private lending did well. Those are the big ones I invest in. Obviously, my business did well. I know your business did well too. So those are all things that I focus on. In a pandemic, usually, like depending on the phase you're in, if you're still like starting out and you're not wealthy and balling yet, then when a recession or a pandemic happens, usually that's where you want to just keep focusing on what's been working and keep your head down. If you're already like a high roller and you're like, dude, I got, $1 million, that's where you could be like, okay, I'm going to go play a little bit. These things all went on sale, so maybe I could go buy some businesses and acquire some things. But that's like kind of two different phases.
That's so cool. Would you say like focusing your activities a little bit more online than before is a good strategy as well?
I think depending on the business, yeah, I definitely did that personally. We had a big office, 3,000 square foot office in Anchorage, and we were like a retail business before 2020. Now we're all online. So I think, online is good, but if that's not your business, that's not your business. If you're an auto shop or a car dealership, there might be a little bit you can do online, but most of it's still going to be, you got to come to the shop and do business.
That's really cool. Can you give me a little bit more understanding of what you do in terms of private lending, just so I could get a little bit more like picture of it, like more reality on it?
Yeah. So basically, with private lending, it would be, for me, I usually I'll do it with a fund. So there's a fund that I'll invest with. The fund is what I call a deal maker. They'll go and they'll find properties and real estate that, the numbers make sense, the locations make sense. And they'll say, okay, we want to buy this property and we want to borrow money from Jerry. And so I'll loan them the money as the bank or the mortgage, and then they'll buy the property. And then they'll either rent it out to like the end user or the tenant, or they'll finance it to the person. Like if it's a single family home, they might do a mortgage with the person that's going to live there. So they collect the income from the end user or the tenant, then they pay me, and then they obviously keep their profit after they pay me.
So you're loaning them the money to be able to get that property.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm quite literally the bank or the mortgage in the transaction.
That's amazing. Okay, great. Thank you. This is so helpful. Really, really learned so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. We do these every week, man. You're welcome to tune in.
I'm on it, man.
Cool. All right, let's jump into some other questions here. We've got a few more that I see. Jimmy has a question. Let me bring Jimmy on live here. All right, we've got Jimmy here. Let me unmute him. I think I just muted him. Jimmy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you tonight, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, quick question. What happens if the fund is late on a payment?
Yeah. So typically there's going to be a grace period of 5 to 10 days. And sometimes it's because it was Martin Luther King Day. And, you know, because of that, the transaction posts a couple days late. If they're actually outside of the grace period, then it becomes a default. And in the event of a default, you typically have recourse to either up the interest rate and they can opt to pay a higher interest rate, or you can foreclose and just take the stuff away. If it's like, and that's where you want to get in contact with, you know, whoever it is you're working with. So if it's a fund and you have direct contact with the fund or the broker, you want to find out what's going on, because it's like, hey, you know, such and such happened. We're going to be back on track next month. And I know that they're telling the truth. It's like, okay, cool. Don't mess with it. We'll let them catch up next month. But if they're like, hey, we don't know when we're going to pay you again, then I probably want to foreclose on them.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I know the escrow, that has a lot to do with it too, which makes sense.
Yeah. And it's always good to have that. So it's not like a 100% trust that they're just going to do the right thing. The escrow is really kind of the accountability.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure. Very good questions. I think that's all the questions that I see here on Zoom. Let me just double check here. Again, if you guys have any questions on investing, maybe even issues you've run into in the past that you would like to talk about when it comes to the topic of investing, drop those in the comments. I don't see anything else on Zoom. Let me check out Facebook again one more time. All right, good. I think that's everything, guys. So we're gonna sign out here for tonight. If you are watching and you have not grabbed a copy of my newest book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom, if you go to jerryfetta.com /B2F. Daniel says, Daniel had a comment. I found the concept of going for stats and not relationships is amazing. Yeah, and that's exactly it. The stats, and it's not to say relationships don't matter. It's saying a good relationship is actually evidenced by stats, right? So if you look at the stats first, that's how you can actually tell it's the right relationship, because otherwise it's like social and it feels good and it's cool, but the stats aren't there. And with an investment, it's kind of like, well, what the hell am I doing if the stats aren't there? So guys, if you have not got a copy of my book, you can go to jerryfetta.com /B2F. That's the letter B, the number 2, the letter F. You can get a copy of that there. I am going to be doing a personal development webinar tomorrow with Celebrity Center in Los Angeles online. So if you want to tune in on that, we're going to be talking about how to get back on track with your New Year's goals. Statistically, 80% of us have quit already. They actually said by January 19th, they call that Quitter's Day, the study that was done. The average person has quit their goals already. So if that's you, no shame. I won't judge. I've been there too. If you need help getting back on board and getting back on with your goals, let us know. Tune in tomorrow. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern. Otherwise, guys, we will see you again next week. Have a great weekend.